Good evening and welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 11th. It is now 7:17 p.m. Voting members, with me to my left is the Vice Chair, Councilor Vivian Marmol, and Councilor Wendy Luzon. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that persons who would like to listen or view this meeting while in progress may either attend here in the City Council chamber or use any of our social media accounts. At this point, can we please stand for a moment of silence for those who lost their lives on September 11, 2001. And now join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilors, can I have a motion to approve minutes from our meeting on August 29th, 2024?
So moved.
Motion has been made by the Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Luzon. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. All right, right into new business. The first item is item 413-24, the authorization to expend $1 million from the EPA Multi-Purpose Grant Funds, and it was brought to us by Lily Reyes, our grant writer. Ms. Reyes, you have the floor.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you. Elialis Reyes, 360 Merrimack Street. So this is a EPA grant, Environmental Protection Agency, multi-purpose grant, which basically means they're exactly what the word is, multi-purpose. So you could do cleanup, you could do assessment, you can do planning. And so we received $1 million from EPA to conduct numerous activities on at least 3 brownfield sites. If there is remaining funds, we can look at an additional 2 other sites. But as of right now, there were 3 sites that were identified, and I believe I attached that to the memo.
Madam Chair,
Councilor Luzon.
and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. President.
Yep.
Madam Chair, thank you. Are we looking into the same grant that was presented to us on the full council? Is this the same one? Madam Chair?
Through
Through you, yes.
So
ma'am.
there are 2, I'm going to safely assume you're referring to the other grant that it's a revolving loan.
In a combination with, it's a grant and a loan.
Yes, this has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's a completely different grant. It's still the same agency, but it's a different grant, completely different.
Yeah, it's more confusing now. So we are getting money from one grant, and then we are combining another grant with the loan. Is that accurate?
So
I know, I'm trying to understand.
Yes, Counselor. So this grant was submitted last year, and it was for, we were highly encouraged, EPA and our regional planning agency and our QEP, they highly encouraged us to submit for this grant. Lawrence is a environmental injustice neighborhood. We have over 40 brownfields, and so they strongly recommended that we submit for this grant so that we can leverage the fact that it has multi-purpose, so there's more broad in what we can do with it, but it has nothing to do with the grant that was in your presence a few weeks ago.
Through you, Madam Chair, but it's going to go to the same site. The intention is to clean a portion of Florence Street.
Yes, it just so happens to be a coincidence that it's one of the same sites, but it's not the only site.
But this is the same site that they were trying.
It's one of the sites, yes, correct.
One of the sites in the same lot that belongs to the city Is that accurate? Because
Yes.
I know, okay,
Yes, Florence Garage.
okay.
Florence Street Garage is one of the projects identified for this grant. However, that's the only coincidence in terms of, or the only similarity, that it's the
Yeah.
same project location, but it's not the same grant. It's completely different. As a matter of fact, there's not even a loan component. There's no match required for this grant.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, but it looks like and thank you for not using coincidence, but it's, through you, Madam Chair. So how do you determine, and I know that Lawrence has different sites with the same situation, brownfield sites. How do you determine which one is a priority for the city?
So we have qualified environmental professionals, what they call QEPs, and these are folks who are licensed and they specify an environment, and so they've done assessments of the city. As a matter of fact, we have, like I mentioned, we have over 40 brownfields, and so throughout the years, I mean, we have our QEP here, and he's one of our licensed folks, and he'd probably be a bit more qualified to help you guys, or help understand which sites are identified. But to answer your question, the majority of the time they do an assessment and they identify, okay, so this location has been, let's say, abandoned or just has been identified to be a brownfield for X amount of years. Let's look into this one. I'm not exactly sure how they do the identification, but that's the license, the QEP, and also our regional agency, Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, helping with the identification of the sites.
Madam Chair, can we ask the, what's his name?
Jose Medina.
Mr. Medina, to explain to us how do they make,
Good evening, Councilor. My name is Jose Medina.
Can you please go to the photo, to the,
sorry.
thank you.
Good evening, Councilor. My name is Jose Medina, and I am here with the Lawrence Water Department. I am here in behalf of Mr. William Hale, the Water and Sewer Commissioner, who is, by the way, doing a great job for the department. We also have here Erica Ajanel. Erica Livet, who is the office supervisor, and who's also is doing a great job for the city of Lawrence, for the water department. And getting back to your question, when we have heavy rain, this area that we have worked on, I've been with the department for 24 years, and this area where there's flooded, the flood every time we have heavy rain. So actually what this money is going to do, this money is going to be spent, they're going to be installing devices to identify which area need.
now I'm more confused.
No,
Madam
that's
Chair.
a different item. Yeah, that's a different item. Yep.
Oh, no, but I mean,
That's a different item.
so is that, no, but I mean, I thank you for explaining that, and thank you for mentioning your coworkers. Thank you. Do for the city of Florence.
It's good. No, we agree with you. Yeah.
Thank you for what you do for the city of Florence. I really appreciate that. No, but my question is that the Florence site.
I see what you're saying.
Is that where the project, the site that is giving you issues, or is another site?
Actually, that is the site that is going to need installation on water, on rainwater, on stormwater, derived, because it has flooded in the last heavy rain that we had. So the water is, we're going to work on that.
Do something about it.
Okay. So we can, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I also add, just in turn, through you, Vice President Infante, one of the other possibilities of why these sites were identified, as we had mentioned in the grant, was because they're in closer proximity to the Lawrence Manchester rail trail that we have coming in the future. And so we're also targeting brownfields that are closest to the Lawrence rail trail.
Just for clarification through you, Madam Chair, so this money, this grant that we received, the city received, is going to be spent on Florence Street, and that's the one with the issue with the water? No, yes, no.
To my knowledge, is not. I think there was a confusion in terms of the water department, because the next item is for the MVP grant, and there was some confusion.
Good. So it's going to be spent between 911 Florence Street, 246 Lawrence Street, and 140 West
Street, yes.
West Street.
So the second site that you mentioned is the Bennington Triangle.
Oh,
And
yes.
and then the other one is Anchor used auto. I think it's Anchor used.
Just for the people that are watching, what do we have in the Bennington Triangle?
So right
Please,
now, it used to be I believe it used to be a former gas station, and so that's why it's identified as a brownfield. All of the chemicals and petroleum that went in on the ground, and so right now the vision is to create it into what is considered a placemaking, so a place where folks can come together and bond in the community, and just a free space where people can come together. That's the vision, and that area has very limited green space.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Ms. Reyes. 140 West Street, who's the owner of the Anchor Auto Junkyard?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I know it's a private owner.
So that's what I'm seeing here. It says privately owned with city access agreement for assessment. Assessment of what?
So the abutting property is the park. The park, I forget the name of the actual park. And so it's to assess that site and make improvements in that park, which again is close to the rail trail.
So I understand that it's close to the rail trail, but we are so stern with everything else when it comes to private properties, that the city can't do this, we can't even like take down a tree if it's on private property, if it's not city owned, et cetera, et cetera. And then something like this, we have a privately owned business as part of a city, as a city grant, like that's not, I'm not okay with that. I think it's the owner's responsibility to get their own property assessed and cleaned up and all of that. I don't think city grants or any type of city money should go into any privately owned properties. So how did they come about, and why are they even listed?
So I'll have the licensed professional explain that a little bit further, because he has experience with how private properties and these grants work.
Got it. Hello.
Good evening, councilors. How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Great. Glad to be here and happy to answer any and all questions that you might have about brownfield stuff, because it can seem a little complicated. I think you were on the right track, Vice President, with where you were going. Like a private owner wouldn't necessarily get his cleanup done through an EPA cleanup grant, but where the multi-purpose grant has the power, and we're so excited, there's so few of these that are awarded, and it's exciting that Lawrence was able to get it, is that you can use two categories. You can assess. The owner of that property has indicated he would like to redevelop his property, whether it's for sale and for a higher, better use. Maybe not him, he might sell it, it might become something better, or he might redevelop it himself. But he doesn't want to spend his own dollars to try to figure out if there's some complication, whether it's from historical contamination or from his own. So the EPA grants can pay for that initial assessment to go, okay, there's something here that needs to be addressed as a part of your redevelopment. When it comes to cleanup, that's where it would draw the line. You can't spend money on behalf of a potentially responsible party, and that also goes for the city. So you own parcels, you own the two parcels that we're speaking about, Florence Street and Bennington Triangle. You cannot spend, if you're the potentially responsible party, you cannot spend cleanup dollars on that. But because you took both of those properties for back taxes back in the day, you're not considered liable for that contamination, so that frees you of that burden. You said, oh, we're taking this because the owner didn't pay their taxes, we're acquiring it, and now we have to do what's right for the property. And that's where the interest for both of those properties came, oh gosh, as long as I've been in working for MVPC, there's been interest in those two properties, and it has to do with because prior work has been spent there by the city and by EPA. And when it comes to Florence Street, that building's falling down. And they looked at it as these two projects, because they're close to the rail trail, when you write a grant like Lily wrote for an EPA grant, is a highly competitive grant that she wrote. And you need to parlay your activities and what you're going to do with something else. Since they already have money that they're expending on the rail trail, to leverage that money that's already being spent at the rail trail on nearby other properties that could be dominoes that could fall as that rail trail gets redeveloped is tremendously important. And when it comes to, there's a couple things that you should realize when it comes to Florence Street. And I know your question is, you were confused about whether or not, like, we're spending money. You came to us last week and you want to spend money with a sub-grant and a loan, and now the EPA multi-purpose grant could be spent there, and the short answer is yes. And it's because you have to layer funds in order to make these things a reality. So taking that initial money to bring the building down, then that's where the multi-purpose grant kicks in after that building comes down, to do a little bit more assessment to understand where in the building, where underneath the building the contamination is. And then the multipurpose pays for the cleanup because you own it and you can do your own cleanup now on that property. You clean it up, you make it ready to go out for RFP for some other higher and better use in the future. Same goes with Bennington, except it's a little different. Your community already wants to keep that. They have a vision for that. The nice thing about multipurpose grants is the cleanup can become the park redevelopment. And by that I mean the same money you would spend on park amenities. Let's say you put pavers down, you put a beautiful capstone, you put a fountain in, you put a pavilion and planters. A lot of those expenditures can be paid with that EPA money because it would be considered an environmental cover system. So this is where you start to layer all these things together, and you start to become multiple uses for your multi-purpose grant. Hopefully that helps clarify things at least a little bit.
I understand. I still don't agree with it, but I understand the process, and I understand that it's.
And thank you. I get that. I think the logic behind helping a private entity, MVPC does this. We do that with their assessment grant all over the region, and the reason for that is because a lot of times to get a project moving, those initial dollars have to be spent. So another developer can come in and say, hey, I see what's going on there. I understand what those liabilities are. Now I can get my head wrapped around coming in there and redeveloping that and spending the money.
Yeah.
And they can develop a pro forma much easier, whether you own the property already or whether you're interested in a property that's contaminated and privately owned. So
Right.
that's the reason why the assessment money can be spent on private properties. It can't be the entity getting the grant and doing it. In this case, it would be Lawrence that is doing the assessment. They own the data, they own the assessment work that's being done, not the private owner in this case. So there's a little bit of a distinction. Yes, it ultimately benefits that private owner because maybe he could sell that, but the idea is you spend the money on properties that'll be a win-win for the community. In other words, this guy gets to sell his property and and then somebody else gets to come in and redevelop it, or he redevelops it. Either way, it's to some community benefit. And so that's the idea.
Right,
It's
I get
adjacent to a park, and now this is cleaned up, and it becomes safer and better.
I get it. Any, Counselor Marmol?
So being that this is privately owned, how did it come about that they became part of this, being one of the three options? Did the owner apply to be part of this grant, or did the city approach the owner, being that this is part of the rail trail and it was to the city's benefit for them to receive this grant? I'm just trying to understand,
Yeah, no,
you know.
that's an excellent question and very insightful. The idea here is that I think that the owner of that property has expressed interest in doing something, not only to the neighborhood, but to his property and to the city. So the city was aware of his interest in doing something. And I think that's where the pieces got put together.
And then just to gain clarity in terms of the confusion that we were having earlier in terms of specifically with the 911 Florence Street. When it came before us in the last meeting, that actually didn't go through. So it was if I'm not mistaken, the grant was for 286,000.
Yeah.
Which that portion passed,
Yeah,
but
but you
then
can't
the
use it.
loan failed, which completely made the whole item, this whole project fail.
Correct.
So being, you made a statement that with this grant, this would be used after it's been demolished.
Yeah.
So how would that come into play if we haven't been able to approve for the demolishing portion of that property?
Well, so if you're still going to use your multi-purpose grant for 3 sites, and the idea was about $300,000+ for cleanup for each of the sites, and then some administrative money to get you to the end. If you're still going to do that, you can spend money at Florence Street, but you just can't get to the end. The pathway of using the MVPC sub-grant and loan, which was the subject of last week, and this multi-purpose together was to get you all the way to the end. And that allowed the cleanup to basically get to a point where you got a blank slate. Now a developer can say, hey, this property is substantially cleaned up. I know what I want to do here. It makes sense. These liabilities aren't going to get in my way.
And then my last question, I hope it's my last, I don't know. It's $750,000, right? And just with the Bennington Triangle alone, I'm just like curious, would pretty much that project would take up the whole grant? Or like, I'm just trying to see how it would make sense that $750,000 is enough for all 3 or even 2.
Yeah,
And I guess it's a 2-part question.
I'm going to start,
If-
and then Lily might finish
Okay.
on that part.
When and if this item is approved or not, how would you guys, the city would focus as to which project you would initiate first?
Excellent. I think the way that in the Brownfields arena, I'll answer your last part of your question first. And that is in the Brownfields arena, we usually advise communities to do the one that's most shovel ready first. In other words, what's most ready, right? In the case of Bennington Triangle and Florence Street, they're both in a similar position. So you could start them simultaneously. You really could. As long as you had a good assessment of the cleanup dollars. Now, when it comes to Bennington Triangle, I think you were concerned about whether or not there'd be enough money. If you started, let's say you started at Bennington Triangle, would there be enough money then to move over to Florence Street? And when it comes to, we're finishing the last of the assessment at Bennington Triangle using MVPC's money. And I think in totality, we just spent about $72,000 or about $90,000. And there was previously a couple $100,000 spent on assessments. We have a good understanding what's there now. And the cleanup, I don't think is going to cost that. And it may put us in a position where it may be pretty inexpensive. We have not done the cost estimating because the final data has just been acquired within the last few days. So we don't know exactly, but it's looking like it's very manageable to work on Bennington Triangle, work on Florence Street, and at least one other site. Maybe others, because you may decide that you have any number of properties that you want to, let's say the city wants to acquire some other properties for back taxes, but you want to understand what the environmental liabilities are first. You can go do phase 1 environmental site assessments to the tune of $5,000 to $7,000 to understand what's at those. You could do 10 of those to try to get comfortable, should we acquire this for back taxes? Because just because you don't have liability for something doesn't mean you don't have to do something about it. So that's an important thing when you take on a property like Florence Street or Bennington Triangle, because there's a thing in the EPA arena called continuing obligations, which means even though you have it, you don't have liability for it, you gotta maintain it, and you can't exacerbate the contamination. In Florence Street, the reason why it's risen so high in Bennington Triangle to a certain extent, why they've risen so high in the priority is that if the building comes down and now rainwater and other things get in and get underneath the slab, they could mobilize the contamination that's under the building and make it worse. And then if something doesn't get done about it and it's not a manageable problem, the city would then could be deemed liable for that as a part of, not doing your continuing obligations.
Great, thank you.
Did I answer the first part though?
Did he answer your question?
Oh, yeah, it just seemed like Councilor Song had additional questions, so.
Yeah, Lily wanted to clarify that the grant total is $1 million.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry,
It's
I saw
$1 million.
750. My apologies.
Yeah.
Lily,
And there's some money that gets spent on administrative, so that's why I was looking at like three, basically,
Yeah, we do have $1 million on our
Yeah.
agenda.
I was looking at the
Yeah.
memo, I'm sorry.
Oh, you got the number? I don't know.
All right, councilors, at this point, I will entertain a motion for this
oh,
item.
Madam Chair, comment?
Is the question going to be quick? Because I do need to
Yes,
leave.
yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, Councilor
It's just,
Lozano.
it's not a question, it's a comment. So that's why, to you, Madam Chair, that I asked several times if there was a plan for Florence Street, and no one gave us an answer. So now, you come to us with another project. And it's great. I know Lily is doing an amazing job. We appreciate that. But also, why not give us the entire plan? Because that was not mentioned. Correct me if
I
I'm wrong.
think-
Can I ask the council a
Was
question?
it, give me 1 second. Did you guys just find out that you were approved for this, that you were awarded for this grant? Because
Spring.
that sometimes can be the reasoning, Councilor Luzon.
And I understand, Madam Chair, but I also, so there was a process of applying for a grant, and no one mentioned it. Just for the record, to put it out there. So I asked several times if there was another plan for this site, and no one had an answer, unfortunately. Nothing to do with your great job, Lily, nothing to do with that, just to the way things are communicated to us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Are you good? I know you wanted to say something,
I was
but.
just going to ask the councilor a question, if that's okay. May I ask you
Yeah.
a question?
Go ahead.
Through
Yep.
the vice president. My question is, when you say plan, did you mean a plan for all the way through? Because I'm in charge of that environmental part of the plan, right? And so I think hopefully you've heard that there's been not only a financial plan as it comes to trying to do the cleanup there, but get to a certain part where you get clean. But I think maybe you were also asking, and I just want clarification, are you asking for a redevelopment plan as well?
I asked for any plan.
Yeah.
And I asked several times, what is the plan with the property, so, with the site? And no one mentioned, because we spent a lot of time talking about the grant and the loan, thinking that was the only money that was coming. No one mentioned this grant. So now the way you explain it, is that okay?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the item died last week,
Yeah.
unless something else happened. But you have a plan.
Yeah.
So you need to take the building down in order to see what we have there.
Yep.
And you also have money for that.
Yes.
So the way that was presented to us just was about the combination of the grant, the other grant, and the loan. So, just for the future, I think we have to change the way the departments communicate to the city councils. So to the city council. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, at this point, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to send up to full council, to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Oh, I saw that in the record.
Committee report? Can you?
Because I feel like we're making a habit of doing that. Yeah, I mean, it could still be sent back.
Can you leave favorable recommendation with committee report, Madam Chair? No?
I don't see a reason as to, I mean, they answered all of our questions. I don't see a reason for it to be a committee report. We're not waiting on anything. They answered all of our questions.
Madam Chair, I think we have questions.
I do the second, because the chair can second, so I second the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
No.
Roll call.
Roll call. Counselor Wendy Luzon,
No.
Counselor Vivian Marlboro,
Yes.
Madam Chair, Monday.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. See you guys next Tuesday. And there will be more questions as you see, so just be ready. All right, the next item is item 14-24, the authorization to expend $664,000 for the lead service line inventories and replacement plan grant. It was brought to us by our water commissioner, William Hale, but we have Mr. Medina here to report on his behalf.
Thank you, Councilor. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry for the confusion earlier. Okay. So actually, I'm just here on behalf of William Hale, the Water Commissioner, and it just was for permission to use the 2 grant that was awarded to the Lawrence Water Department. Like Councilor Stephanie Franklin mentioned, the first one is for lead service inventory replacement plan, and the second one.
Is it lead service?
Yeah, lead service,
Sorry,
yes.
I read it as lead
No,
lead
lead
service.
service, correct.
Lead service. My apologies.
Yeah, actually, the state requests that the water distribution system will be lead-free. And like, we have removed 90% or more of the lead service system in the city. And now they just want us to do an inventory of the record tie card to be scanned and to be, organized, and to, they want us to make sure that whatever's in the car is accurate with the water service line.
No, you're doing.
I'm sorry, I'm
No,
going
you're
too
doing
fast.
great. You're doing
Okay,
great. No,
okay,
you're
okay.
doing great. You're doing
All
great.
right.
You're doing great.
Excellent. So, and the second grant, $1.6 million is to be spent in the Green Lawrence Blue Merrimack to conduct the citywide stormwater model, to come up with a capital improvement plan to help reduce flooding in the city, especially on those areas where we have a lot of customer complaint every time we have heavy rain. And once again, this 2 grant was awarded to the city, no match. So basically, the state basically giving us the money to do the project.
So I just realized, Mr. Medina, you gave us a report for both the items.
Yeah,
But that's okay.
Okay,
We got
I'm
the
sorry.
information. So let's take the lead service line inventories and replacement plan grant. Councilors, do you have any questions regarding that item? Councilor Marmol?
It's pretty simple, because I'm looking at the memo. Is there a specific location as to where these services will be conducted?
Actually,
Or is it
the whole city? Actually, we have to go through the whole record. Yeah, and like, we already done that. We have done the most we can, but the state want us to do an inventory now and to make sure that we inspect and verify that all of them are lead-free.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for item 414-24.
motion to approve item number, not approve, motion to send item number 41424 to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion has been made, properly seconded. Any discussion, further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. So now we have item 415-24, and it's the authorization to expend $1,601,840 for the MVP Stormwater Resilience Grant, brought to us by the Water Department as well. We did hear a little bit about it from Mr. Medina. Councilors, do you have any questions regarding this particular item? Councilor Marmo?
Same question. Is this throughout the whole city or is this at a specific location?
Like I mentioned earlier, we have a specific location where we have complaints. When we have heavy water, heavy rain, the water, have, slowed. It doesn't, it flooded the area. So those are the places that we're going to concentrate to do most of the work.
Not that I have an issue in moving this item further, but I would like, at our next meeting, if you're able to provide us with details as to what are these affected areas. That way, if there's counselors, that I believe this information would be, beneficial for them to know and be able to communicate that to their constituents.
Sure.
We might have, I just saw our grant writer in the back. She's like, I might have it, so we might have that information. But either way, I'll also send an email to Commissioner Hale so we can have, the only thing we have is the memo.
Right.
So we don't have a breakdown, even though you're here presenting, it's still good to have it on the record just in case.
Sure.
So I'll let them know so that we'll have it for next meeting.
Excellent.
I think she's looking for it, I don't know.
But either way, I would
Yeah.
want to see it in writing.
Yeah,
I just say, it has to be like around DNC.
yep, yep.
That's the area that I most.
Flooding? Yeah.
Okay, so any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve item 41524. Motion to send to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion has been made, properly seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. Well, we look forward to seeing you more. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for the.
Bye. Jose Medina. Councilors, can I have a motion to, Mr. Medina, the reason why I laughed a little, I was sharing with my.
Say that after we adjourn.
Okay, I'll say it after we adjourn. Okay, no, don't leave yet, don't leave
Motion
yet.
to adjourn.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it.
Now you guys.